Hello, I'm Josh from Seeking English, and this is an unscripted discussion of how to guess better or guess worse on standardized tests of math. Now, I of course don't like the idea of students guessing on tests, but if you budgeted your time such that you get into a problem to a point where you have not made any progress in solving it and your budgeted time has run out, which on a lot of tests is going to be about 90 seconds, then you need to pick an answer and move on. You don't leave anything blank. And so for that reason, having a strategy for how to guess slightly better is not cheating. It is not silly. It is none of those things. It's an efficient use of your time to pick the best answer that you can pick in the time available, and then move on. So the three tests that I teach that involve math are the SAT, the GRE, and the GMAT. And I'm using the 4-answer format from the SAT here, just because it's easier to explain what I'm trying to explain with that. It's also the same principle applies where you have 5 possible answers, but it's harder to explain in that way unless you've seen it this way first. Okay. What happens on standardized math tests is that they tend to put answers in some kind of order. If they're kind of numerical answers, they often will go from smallest to largest, as has happened here, or they might go in some other order, but there's an order to them. And the most common thing is this kind of an order, though, where they make it easy for people like me to show you how to get more points on a test simply by showing you what I'm going to show you now. What happens is, again, this is the SAT format for 4 answers. You're either looking for a solution or you're looking for a non-solution. If something is a solution, they want it to be confusing, and this is going to make more sense after I've explained the second part of the thing. But if something is a solution to a formula, it's a solution to an equation, they want it to be a little bit confusing, and so they will tend to put it in between 2 other numbers. Number 0 is somewhat easy to confuse with number -1 and with number 1. And the number 1 is somewhat easy to confuse with 0 and also with the number 2. But you notice the number 2 doesn't, there's no 3 here to confuse it with. And this -1, there's no -2 down here to confuse it with. So those outer answers are a little bit less confusing. So that may not seem like an obvious reason for test designers to slightly prefer to give you these inner answers, B and C, as being slightly more probable as solutions. But it seems to be. Another part of it is that they don't want a whole string of the same kind of answers on tests, although you will see that occasionally. They want a kind of a superficial balance of A's, B's, C's, and D's as correct answers. And in order to offset this other thing, this is a way to do that. Make sure that you have enough problems where B and C are going to be the correct answer. And so with that. In non-solutions, it's just the opposite. That if something is not a solution, that means that it breaks the formula or it breaks the equation. The most common way to do that, or the easiest way to do that, is for the answer to simply be too large to fit the formula or too small to fit the formula. So, the smallest answer or the largest answer are your most likely answers. If you look at it this way, if 0 were too small, then -1 would also be too small. And they can't both be correct. Okay, so is this 100% reliable? No, it's not. But I'm telling you how to make good use of your time. If you get to about 90 seconds on almost any standardized test of math, and you've got no progress, you're either looking for a solution or a non-solution. And so you pick pick the best thing that you can and move on, so that you're not using time for a problem that you're not going to solve, which you could be using for a problem that you could solve. So again, here, if the number 1 is too large, then the number 2 is also too large, and it can't be both of them. So most of the formulas and most of the equations that you'll see on all 3 of these tests, the SAT, the GRE, and the GMAT, are simple enough that it's going to be most of the time the largest or smallest number that is the solution. Sorry, that is the non-solution that you're looking for. Okay. Now that's the SAT. The GRE is different because it has 5 answers normally, and the GMAT is different because it has 5 answers normally. But the same principle applies. Where you're looking for something that's a solution, your correct answers will tend to be somewhat more concentrated at the middle of the 5 answers. So answer could be answer C, could be one of those other middle answers, but it's less likely to be one of the outer answers, A or E, and that is also true of the GRE and of the GMAT, because what these tests all do have in common is this bizarre habit of putting the answers in some kind of transparent, usually numerical order, and it could be with exponents, could be with integers, it could be with various things, but usually there's a movement from large to small or small to large, and you can exploit that to give yourself at least some kind of small statistical advantage if you know that you don't have time to actually solve the problem and that you need to mark something and move on.